What's up?
Hello.
Welcome to episode 313 of This Uncanny Earth. We're letting the intern take the reins for the night. So,
You
intern,
gave him the front spot even, first in
yeah,
line.
Feel
yeah,
good. Feel fancy.
yeah. So go ahead, man. This
All
is
right.
your show.
Turning my background off. Okay, so I decided to stay at my house, at my grandparents' house tonight, so I could make sure we didn't lag too bad. All right. So first, I wanted to go ahead and start. We're gonna do some news tonight. So there's been a lot going on in the world right now, and I wanted to talk about some of this and get your guys' opinion on some of this stuff. So the first thing we have is the Treasury Department gives Elon Musk and Doge his Department of Government Efficiency program. They get access to the federal payment system. And this is from ABC 7 News right here.
Buyouts to its entire workforce. And Elon Musk facing criticism over his government revamp efforts. ABC's Lionel Louise has the latest.
This morning, the CIA is now offering buyouts to its entire staff, the latest move in President Trump's push to downsize the government. It follows a similar offer to civilian federal workers last month.
Less
About
government sounds good to
20,000 of
me.
those workers have now accepted the buyout ahead of tomorrow's deadline, amid reports of mass layoffs to come. ABC News has learned Elon Musk, leading the Department of
Thank you,
Government
Sound Zeus.
Efficiency, has now moved beds into the executive office building next to the White House, allowing Musk and his staff to sleep there when working late.
Oh,
His
wow.
staff reportedly includes people as young as 19 years old. President Trump insists they're qualified.
They're very smart people.
Trump also praising Musk for dismantling USAID, an agency that funds international relief efforts.
It's a disaster.
USAID staff getting this email that all direct hires will be put on administrative leave with pay, except for certain staffers serving mission-critical functions.
At least they get their pay, though.
Democrats held a rally outside the Treasury Department to protest Musk's influence.
All right, we get the idea from that. So, what do you guys think about that one? Them getting into the Treasury Department like that. You think that's a big deal or no?
Well, I had read from the Treasury Department itself, if I remember correctly, in a follow-up news story to that it was read-only access. It wasn't direct access
Yeah.
in a way where they can actually change anything or mess around with anything or do any
Okay.
copying or anything. It was kind of like, yeah, you can come in and you can look the stuff over,
Yeah.
but you can't
Because
play around with it.
Yeah, a lot of people are really worried about this. And I am one of the people worried about this because I've heard some other sources, like mainstream news, telling us that Musk wants to get rid of Social Security. And I'm like, I'm all for getting rid of Social Security on the one hand, but what about all the money I've already paid into it? Does that just disappear?
That's another problem. And I don't want to take over and not let Rob have anything to say here, but I do want to say that Social Security, the fund that it comes out of, has been problematic for a while because it's basically a slush fund that, even though it's earmarked for Social Security benefits, it also has caveats where it can be dipped into whenever the federal government wants to. Like if they need that
Yeah.
money for something, they can go in and they could take it anytime they want. So it's inherently
That's not
kind of
good.
flawed to begin with, unfortunately, which is why every single election cycle you always hear people saying, "Oh, they're going to get rid of Social Security." They probably won't get rid of it, but they could definitely take money out of it. And that's something that every party has done over the years, all the way back to, I think it was one of the Roosevelts. I don't remember which one had used it for something to fund some wildlife something or other, if I remember
Yeah.
right. I'm sure somebody will want to fact check that because it's been a while since I actually looked into any of that. But it's already kind of problematic. Getting rid of it entirely is not the best idea unless you were moving towards something they have in Europe, which is a universal basic income, which has its
That-
own problems,
Yeah.
but it's also it. I'm more in favor of that under certain circumstances,
If it's a livable wage.
and if people aren't just going to sit there and be lazy slugs and just live
Yeah.
off the government
Which
forever
they're
because
already
they
doing
can.
that as it is.
Yeah, granted,
Ja-
but
and
you know.
just to point out real quick, James said he is on SSI and veterans benefits, and he says he's not worried about it. Rob?
Um, I think the news is always going to blow up something to epic proportions. I think the best way to do it is to read from different sources because
Yeah,
one side will always polarize it to their um,
I definitely noticed that.
viewpoint, while the other side will do the same thing. So you need to find out the root cause, analyze it against other sources, and then make your best guess because we're not going to know everything. But the way I see it, man, there's too many federal employees as it is in terms of certain
Hey, Aaron,
um,
good to see you.
departments and things like that that exist for no reason other than to put
Mhm.
money in somebody's paycheck.
Yeah,
I do think we need government um, resources because they are a larger entity than we are. You know, they're supposed to exist to aid the common man in making his life better, which they don't do that. So, what I think, to be quite perfectly honest, is yeah, cut them.
yeah.
The only thing that kind of troubles me, and I think I want to bring this up because it's something I saw the other day, they are going to try to send American prisoners, the worst of the worst, so to speak, to prisons in El Salvador. I don't know if
Mm.
you know
Oh,
about Mano Salvatrucha 13, but they lock them up in this 300-man cell and they never leave. They
oh,
never see
wow.
daytime. They never leave that cell. They sleep on metal bunks.
Oh,
They don't have. Um, it's rough. So the one
ironically,
thing that worries me about this government is the idea that they can send American prisoners out of the country to another country,
yeah,
because then
that
that just means they
sounds,
can make people disappear
yeah,
100%.
that
So
definitely sounds kind of bothersome. Because I
I
saw,
am not for it. So I
because,
don't think that's a
Mm.
good thing.
yeah, I did see something about FEMA camps recently, and that reminded me of another conspiracy theory we had talked about before, but I'm not going to get into all that. I just wanted to mention that really briefly.
The
But
Basically,
yeah,
FEMA
what he
camp
was
thing
saying.
has always
Yeah.
been something that people use as kind of a boogeyman, but this is
Yeah.
different. This is, and the way they're justifying it is they're justifying it by saying that, oh well, MS-13, because I can't pronounce the entire name as well as you did. Um, it it's a gang that originated in Central America, so the justification is that oh, since they're based there, then every single member must be from there. Whereas a
Ah.
lot of members that live in California and some of those southern states are actually American citizens. And so just because they're part of the gang and the gang is based in a different country doesn't mean you should ship everybody who was here there so they can all be together. That seems kind of like a bad idea to me to just send them all there together,
Yeah.
to be honest.
It actually reminds me of this old TV show I used to watch on Fox called Prison Break. And at one point in the show, without getting too much into it, at one point in the show, they actually sent them to a prison that was basically run by the inmates themselves. They had like full power, and they just dumped them in a hole and left them.
I want to say this to Lighthouse: the government is corrupt. There's no government
Yep.
entity that won't be corrupt because there's not enough checks and balances to keep them from corruption. When you can buy the checks and balances,
I agree with
so
that.
and you are going to see companies running governments a lot more as technology increases.
The government is a company
I
also. The
think,
government, the United States government
yeah.
was, um, I don't remember what the term is. It was, I want to say companyized, but that's not the word at
Yeah.
all. It's a dumb word that I made up apparently. It's
Companized. There we go. I like it.
no, it's corporatized.
Oh, okay.
Corporatized. The
Privatized.
United States government is incorporated. It is a business in the United States, and it's in the business of being the government. Not a lot of people know that these days, even though it's been for quite a long time.
Yeah. So it kind of sounds like an oligarchy to me. Not trying to get too far into conspiracy territory here, but I was under the impression that an oligarchy is when basically the money runs the country. And I've heard some people suggesting that.
I don't necessarily. I just think that it's a natural course.
Yeah.
I think as technology increases, that's the government that's going to take over.
Okay.
There's not much you can do to stop it. High technology makes them the government.
Yeah.
At some point, there's going to be a line blurred where you can't tell the difference between a government and a company.
Oh,
And I think that's the natural order of our civilization.
I think that's where we are now. I agree. All right.
But I think
Okay.
it's going to be a lot more open.
Yeah.
then we
Okay.
have it now. Anyways, continue,
You
please.
guys ready for the next video?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
All right, so this one is a pretty big one. I think it's a big deal. You know, people have been telling me that I'm blowing it out of proportion or, you know, whatever, but let's get into it. So where was it? Okay. This one. They're not, I don't know if ban is necessarily the right word, but they're getting rid of a lot of officially recognized holidays.
As
So,
part of President Trump's
look at
pushback
this.
on diversity and inclusion initiatives, NBC News has learned that the Defense Intelligence Agency has ordered a pause on all events related to MLK Day or Black History Month, which we should note begins tomorrow. Joining us now with more, NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell, Atlantic staff writer Ashley Parker, and Aaron Haynes.
And I've seen
Okay.
other. Yeah, I'm
Stop
gonna
this
stop it
video.
here. Yeah.
Just stop it completely, and I'm gonna show you where you're. Don't pull things from MSNBC. MSNBC is a left-leaning news outlet.
Okay.
They won't tell you the truth. Now, I have a feeling on this, right? I don't think we need to have any of those days. I don't think they're needed. I
Real
think
quick-
history is history. It
There's
doesn't
one-
matter what day of the week
There's
it is.
one
or
day I
month
would
it
like-
is.
There's one holiday in particular I would like to point out to you, particularly though,
Okay.
considering your background. Now, like you said, this is MSNBC where I got this from, so I don't, like you said, I don't necessarily know how true this is, but I've seen this presented about on like 5 different mainstream news sources, and they told me that one of the holidays that they're getting rid of is the Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Okay.
And I thought that was a pretty big deal because they're basically saying Holocaust? Holla who? Didn't
The
happen.
wording is a pause,
No, not at all.
though.
They're not
the wording
saying that
is
at
a
all.
pause.
Okay.
That's the key difference. It's not they're not abolishing.
Okay.
The key word is they are putting a pause, probably to find out how much involved federal spending is on these kind of things, which makes sense because you have a lot of things. I think
Oh.
a lot of people should have their own holidays by all means, but I don't think necessarily it should be federally funded or federally as a thing, because I
can
don't
agree
think
with
it.
that.
I'm not a holiday guy to begin with, but at the same time, I recognize that a lot of cultures, a lot of people, they have festivals, they have things for cultural identity, they have all these kind of things that make sense. Let them celebrate that stuff. But at the same time, I don't think that justifies having a federal oversight of that kind of thing. And I don't want people to take that out of proportion and say that I don't think.
No.
I know somebody out there is going to say that I'm racist or something.
I think
because
you're
of
trying
that,
to
and I
say
don't
that-
mean that. I don't think you shouldn't be able to celebrate that. I don't think.
It just shouldn't be funded by the government.
I think you should be able to celebrate it however you choose to celebrate it in the privacy of your own home.
Yeah.
However,
100%.
I don't think we need it. I don't think we need all these history months and all these other months. History is every day, and it's intertwined.
That's why I
and
like
you can
talking
learn about it
this
at any time you want to. You don't need a whole month, because to me, I think what you're doing is you're saying, "Oh, poor group,
Yeah.
you're not important enough, so we're going to give you a day because we feel bad for you. You need to have your own day because you can't do this without us. You need us." Meanwhile, I can learn about any form of history I want. I've learned about Africa when it was the middle of June.
So you
I've
see it
learned
as,
about
like,
Europe when it's
patronizing.
winter. I think it 100% is patronizing.
Okay.
Now, if people want to celebrate it and have festivals, that's fine. That's part of being an American, is that concept of being able to gather, free speech peacefully, and just have fun. Now, some of us like the federal holidays because you get the days off.
Yeah.
Some of us, not all of us.
I don't get days off.
But I think that as Americans, if we're going to bond together, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
You don't need a holiday. You don't need a special celebration. I think we just go about our day,
Yeah.
And
The
like
thing
I
about
said, people could call me racist if they want to, but I don't. That's the furthest thing from that,
Yeah.
I just think as Americans, we need to be more united and less separated.
The thing about it too is that a lot of the companies that go out of their way to make a big point about it every month that there is something, like let's say
It's for
Microsoft
PR. They
changes
don't
their
actually care.
Well, here's the thing. It's becoming pretty evident that a lot of these were only doing it to chase certain sources of funding, because especially in the games industry, you had a lot of companies that were focused on diversity and focused on this and a bunch of other words and things. And then now that the various things are changing, they've started to pull all those things independently. There's no government rules that says, hey, video game company A, you need to stop celebrating this stuff. You need to stop pushing this thing. Nobody has said that, but they've started to stop spending money on it. Like Target has stopped doing that kind of stuff. A lot of other big companies have stopped, not because anybody told them to, but because, oh, well, since the government doesn't want to do it, there's no money in it for us anymore.
Yeah.
And that should tell everybody how these companies actually felt about it to begin with, that they weren't in it to help you be seen or to help you have your
They
identity
wanted
or
more
whatever.
people to buy their stuff.
They were in there to make a buck off of you, just like the rest
Yes.
of us.
Now, real quick, I'd like to actually talk about something Chad is talking about over here about school. You know, they claim that it's a bully-free zone, and it's quite the opposite. I think we can all tell stories that we've all been bullied in school, and I'd Cabbage has been talking about something, but I'm trying not to post that because I know this goes to YouTube and I know they're kind of iffy about certain things, but I did see what I'd Cabbage said, and that's a very good point. If, you did something like that, the government would find a way to make it your fault, and they would not take, I don't personally feel like they would take responsibility. And Aaron said the education system will be dismantled, and thinks that's a good thing. And I'm honestly a little conflicted about that myself, because on the one hand, I think the education system is not working. As it is, I think it's a failure. And I think it's used to brainwash our country. And we're brainwashing our children, in my personal opinion. But at the same time, I could also see how some people might make the argument that if you're dismantling the education system, that's because you don't want people to be smart. But it's kind of conflicting because,
The system is flawed, really, is what the point
Yeah.
is. Everybody should get, from childhood on up, should have access to a good education. The issue is there's too many fingers in the pie for education. They don't want to teach you absolutely everything there is to know. They want to teach you things that they think is important, like certain government agencies or certain cultural people or certain regions or religions or whatever. They say, this is what we need to teach the kids. No, no, no. This is what we need to teach the kids. No, no, no. That's crap. This is what we need to teach the kids. The kids should be able to learn pretty much everything
Yeah.
and
I'd be cool
take
with
with that from what they will, to be honest. I mean, some things are sensitive, so you save that for when they're a little older, of course. You don't want to teach 5-year-olds about
The
sex
Indians, the
education
Trail of
and things like
Tears.
that. I mean, it's an event that happened. It did
Yeah.
happen. So, go ahead and teach that kind of stuff. But just make sure that everybody's at an appropriate age where you'll understand that kind of thing. And part of the problem is they pick and choose what they want to and what they don't do. And so nobody is getting that complete education anymore.
Yeah. And Lighthouse Flame asked, how is education flawed? What is the goal of a high school education? Personally, I think education is flawed because the teachers insist you show your work, it has to be this, and if you don't show your work, even if you got the right answer, it doesn't matter. You're wrong because you didn't show your work or you didn't do it in the way that they wanted you to do it. And that is what I felt like was a flaw in the education system when I was in school.
Some of that's
myself.
critical thinking, though. Sometimes they want to see that you're doing critical thinking and you're working things out.
Because, like, there's been multiple times. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
I get where you're coming from, though, because we had a couple of different math systems when I was going to school. Some of them were really good.
Yeah.
And then later on, when I was getting towards in mid-high school, they introduced a couple that were just, they really didn't teach you how to think through the problem. They taught you a process, but not how to understand what the process was doing.
Yeah.
And so on the one hand, it
Chemistry.
helps to show the work because it shows the process of how you arrived at the end of an equation.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you're just following a process and you don't know how the process works, you
Then
just
it's
know
not
that
gonna help
you have to follow this. It doesn't matter whether you get the right answer or not.
Yeah. Because, like, when I was in school, one thing that I always noticed was I felt like I got the answer a lot faster doing things my own way. And then they would tell me, no, you got the right answer, but you didn't show your work. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't show my work because you told me to do 2 steps and I've already done 8 steps in my head. I'm so far ahead of everyone else in the way they do it. In my personal opinion, I felt like it was so much easier to do it this way than that way, and they would, just tell me that I was wrong.
And this is exactly the point I'm making. You have to, especially in a discipline like this from Lighthouse, in that knowing the process shows you how generally you arrived at either a correct or an incorrect hypothesis. And you have to know each step of that process and why each step worked. And that's where part of the breakdown is, because in some modern systems, they'll tell you, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this, and do this, rather than, well, why do we do this, and this?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You just do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And that's where the breakdown is.
And I'd Cabbage said they dropped out at 17 and 21 now. And honestly, a lot of people would probably give them, flack for that, but I think it's fine. So long as you know what you need to know, then I don't see a problem with dropping out of school, personally. It's something that's up to each individual, and I'm not going to encourage it, but I'm also not going to discourage it either. Do what you feel is best for you. All right. Either one of you want to say anything else about education before we move on?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. So next, let's see. Oh, here's something that I haven't actually looked into myself yet that I wanted to look at together. So this one is, what are they always trying to do? They're always trying to impeach Trump, right? Every day we're getting another reason to impeach the man, regardless of my own personal opinions,
Pointless.
But here.
Ethnic cleansing in Gaza is not a joke, especially when it emanates from the President of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, when he has the ability to perfect what he says. Ethnic cleansing in Gaza is no joke, and the Prime Minister of Israel should be ashamed, knowing the history of his people, to stand there and allow such things to be said. Ethnic cleansing has been a crime against humanity. And I stand here today in the well to denounce what was said, to denounce what the president said, to denounce the complicity of the Prime Minister of Israel, and to remind people that Dr. King was right. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And injustice in Gaza is a threat to justice in the United States of America. I rise to announce that the movement to impeach the president has begun.
All right, so you get the idea on that one. He's trying to impeach him because he said he's going to ethnically cleanse Gaza. If you've seen that video, I'm sure you probably have. But, yeah, long story short, that's what happened.
I do think that plan is dumb.
Yeah.
To try to... The United States has no business messing around in the Middle East to that level. We don't. We have absolutely no business doing that. In fact, we should leave that alone, and we should also pull all of our money from all the other little countries that are out there, out of Saudi Arabia, out of Israel, out of everybody, and let them fight it out. Let them deal with it. Let them work it out amongst themselves. That's what I think. I don't think we should have any stake in what any of them are doing at this point, because they're going to hate each other anyway. There's nothing we can do to make them get along. It's up to them. And just trying to go in and take over a part of land in a complete opposite side of the planet seems kind of dumb to me. Like, I'm not going to mince words about that. That seems stupid.
If you tell by his sing-song voice, his lows to highs,
he wants
very
people to pay
much,
attention.
very much a minister style of speaking. Pull the attention in.
Okay.
Watch how they talk to you. Always watch how people talk to you.
Yeah.
Because that tells everything you need to know about a person. So the way he's talking to you, he's trying to elicit sympathy. Yeah. But what he doesn't understand, or maybe he does, he just doesn't want to pull it, is it's very much that they're just using those people for votes. They're using those people to get sympathy to their cause. They're like, yeah, look at all these people that have died here.
Yep.
But yet, when we look at places like the projects and really poor neighborhoods
They
in
don't seem to care
the
much
United
about
States, the government doesn't care. Something I want to bring up, when there
Government
was all
caused that.
those school violences, those happened in violent neighborhoods in the 80s, in poor neighborhoods in the 80s, and nobody made a fuss about it. So it's all just 100% propaganda, because if he would look at the history between the Palestinians
Yeah.
and the Israelis and the Arabs and these, they all
They're
don't
never
like
gonna
each
stop.
other.
They're
It's
never
none of
gonna
our
stop
business. We're not to be the ones to rush in and save the day. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. We have enough problems here. This guy's talking about an ethnic cleansing, but yet that's not really the case, because they don't like each other.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't mention the things that they've done to the Israelis when they basically raided the area. They don't talk about the Arab Palestinian war.
Or
They don't talk about.
ISIS.
There's none of that they talk about. They just give you that little bit of information to get you riled up in your spirit, and then what they do is they pull the wool over your eyes.
Like you were
So-
trying to tell me about MSNBC earlier being one-sided.
And they are, just like Fox News is one-sided.
Yeah.
That's the media. The media these days is one side or the other, and I've said this before. The minute they let panels of people on there to discuss the issues is the day that news basically died. Instead of having an anchor that had, hey, we're with so-and-so, go to so-and-so. And so-and-so be like, I'm here, boots on the ground. Now it's like, now we go to our senior correspondent, Jim so-and-so.
Jim
Now we go to
Belushi.
our newsroom correspondent, so-and-so. We have a panel of 15 people.
Yeah.
Now you have 15 people that somewhat get along, but they don't. I don't know, man. I just don't.
And I heard they were going to let...
I don't feel it.
Actually, now that you mentioned that, I wanted to get your opinion on something else I heard. I don't have a video for it. I just, I saw it. But I've seen them talking about how the White House is apparently going to let podcasters and social media people do news from the White House. Have you heard about that at all?
I think it's a fantastic idea. That's
Yeah.
the wave of the future. More people got their news off of social media than they did off credible media sources last year.
Because we can't trust the credible media sources anymore.
CNN, MSNBC, Fox, a lot of those people. You didn't hear too much about it from Fox because they're gloating because they figured, our side won. But they're
Right.
laying people off just as much
Yeah.
as the other two are. And the mainstream news took a massive hit because every single one of them, except for a couple of them, said, oh, yeah, the election's going to go this way. The polls are saying this. The polls are saying that. And every single poll was skewed. And they got rocked, hard. And it's
Social media is
because
important these days.
everybody was going to social media, to YouTube specifically. Places like YouTube
TikTok.
were the biggest news sources, to be honest.
That's a good point, Panda. That's a good point. That's a really solid point.
Yeah.
Because that's what it used to be. Like I said, until when they started interjecting their own personal opinions and beliefs into every story.
Yeah.
That's what
it
we've
was
always
news.
said.
And I try, I know I do that sometimes, but I try really hard not to. I try not to do that because I understand that can, push people away and make them not want to watch. But
And the other thing too, as far as an impeachment effort, there is a Republican near supermajority right now. It's not perfect in the Senate. They don't have the full 60 majorities, so they still have to, get a few people on their side to pass bills and things. But as far as something like an impeachment, it's never going to work. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. If you really want to fight back and to resist and do whatever, then you would work through the legislature. You would work on the ground in the local communities, and you would get things changed legally like it should have been done the entire time, rather than just trying to push things through, force things through, make up stuff, do this, do that. I'm sick of investigations. To be honest, I'm 100% sick from either side. I don't want to see another Republican-led investigation. I don't want to see another Democrat-led investigation. I don't want them investigating anything. I want them to fix.
Just tell us
things
what's
that are
going
wrong.
on and be done with it.
I said it on my podcast recently.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned TikTok a minute ago. Spider does things. Go check him out.
As far as the government is concerned, my stance is I want it to function and to leave me alone.
Yes.
And if it can do those two things and not screw everything up, everything is fine.
That
If
would be
they
wonderful.
can't function, then we have a problem. And for most of my adult life,
Can't
it has
function.
not functioned.
Same. I can agree with that.
And that's for both parties. That's not just one side or the other. I'm not loyal to one
Yeah.
side or the other. It's just it has not functioned for different reasons, and a lot of people are at fault.
Okay. So the next one is a video from ABC 30 Action News, but Rob just informed me a minute ago that we shouldn't trust them because they're a little one-sided. So I'm just going to tell you what they're talking about. There has been talks about Trump wanting to end the 14th Amendment, which is birthright citizenship. And I've been cracking jokes about that all over the place. And I'm like, look, if they end birthright citizenship and I'm not a citizen of the place I was born in, do I get to just pick and choose where I was born? In that case, I'm a Japanese citizen. Deport me back to Japan, please. So what do you guys think about that?
I can't really go with your reasoning there because Japan can just quickly say, "Oh, well, you're not Japanese. No thanks."
Yeah, but I mean, you get my point. Like, where's the logic in this? If you're not born if you're not a citizen of where you were born, then what are you a citizen of? How did they determine that?
Part of the thing is that when the first immigration protocols were officially put in years and years ago, not all the way back to when pilgrims arrived here, but after that, and they started regulating Ellis Island and all that other kind of stuff, one of the things that they eventually put into place was if you come over here and you have children here, your children are born here, and if your children grow up and can contribute, then they live here. They're citizens because everybody was expected to contribute. Right now, there's a lot of murkiness on whether or not people coming into the country from the migrations or whatever, on whether they're contributing or not. And that's where most of the issue is. A lot of people say, well, they're contributing to the economy because they're working jobs and they're working this, but they're not working those jobs legally. They're not working those jobs. They're basically working under the table. And the employers are very much at fault for a lot of that, for allowing that and encouraging that. Big corporations saw cheap labor.
I've seen 14-year-olds working in restaurants.
And they said, sure, by all means, let them in, let them over. We'll hire them, we'll do that. And as long as they have money, again, as long as these people have money, they'll contribute and they become part of whatever.
Is that why people talk about them being a drain on the society?
Sort of. A lot of people assume that people are coming here and not working, that they're coming over here and not doing anything, which is not true because at least in my experience here, we have a lot of different people here that I'm sure probably resettled from over the border, and they work all the freaking time.
Yeah.
Like they are always working, and it's usually labor. It's not like sitting around at a computer doing
12,
computer
15
stuff.
hours a day.
They're building houses, they're mowing lawns, they're working all the time. You can't say that they're lazy. I mean, maybe I don't know if you're in a place where maybe you can see people just kind of sitting around doing nothing, but maybe that's a problem with your local employment numbers. Maybe the jobs aren't hiring. That might not be their fault, but there's a lot more complicated variables to all that. And so trying to end the birthright citizenship, I can see why, but I don't think it's the best method of trying to control that kind of thing. I don't think, because you also hear the derogatory term anchor babies, where people will come here just to have babies, and then that'll let them stay here until their kids are old enough to support them, which is a very long time. It's like 18 to 20 years before the kids grow up and
Maybe
can get a job and support your parents. Who's going to wait that long? You're really going to sit on your butt and do nothing while you're waiting for your kid to grow up so that they can pay for you to sit on your butt and do nothing? Make it make sense. I mean, it doesn't to me.
Yeah.
But, I understand it, but I don't think that's particularly the way, and I don't think it's being abused as much as the claim is.
Okay. Rob?
See, that's a tough one because,
like you said, there's a lot of
even if there is a little abuse, you got to curtail that, but I think you curtail that by making an example.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be if you got caught stealing, they cut your hand off. People
Oh, I
didn't
heard about
steal as
that.
much.
I heard about that.
So you have
Still
to
do
do
that in some
something
countries.
in that regard so that you put the point across like, hey, if you do this, we're going to give you, 30
I
years in prison. I'm not saying that's what's going
yeah.
to happen, but you got to make it so extreme that people
Something.
are curtailed from doing that. Like
I
you lose,
yeah.
you lose your citizenship, your son loses his citizenship, you guys get sent back packing.
I got a good one for you then. So, for example, if you're working in a restaurant and people are supposed to break their cardboard down, but they don't break their cardboard down, what punishment do you give them to enforce the rule that you break your cardboard down? You spray them with a hose every time they don't break the cardboard down. And then they start breaking that cardboard down. And then you get in trouble and lose your job for spraying your coworkers with a hose. But you don't lose your job, but you get scolded. But here's the thing. Once you get scolded and your boss makes you stop spraying your coworkers with a hose, you know what happens? They stop breaking their cardboard down. They were breaking it down when they were getting sprayed with a hose. Just a stupid story I had to tell you.
I'm not sure I quite can advocate for your methods. I can understand your point, but I'm not sure I can advocate for your methods.
It worked. And real quick, I wanted to mention nobody really, sorry if I mispronounced that, said that you would be a citizen of wherever your parents are nationals of, and currently you can be both in most countries, dual citizenship. So that sounds like a good thing. I've heard about dual citizenship, and that sounds like an interesting thing.
I'm not sure I'm all for that kind of thing. I think if you were born here, you should be a citizen of here. And if you want to become a citizen someplace else and your parents want to take you someplace else, then they should change your citizenship from here to there, to be honest. Because if they want to take you there to live, I don't see a reason why you need to be a citizen here if they're going to take you there to live. You can always come back and become a citizen again, I suppose. But I don't know. If you're born here, you're a citizen here.
Yeah.
I think that should be it. And if your parents are a citizen of someplace else, well, that's just how it is. And then,
like, you both made very good points, but I think what you just said is exactly my confusion about it. Like, I don't understand how it works if you're not a citizen of where you were born. I mean,
I think the percentage of people who actually abuse this is far less than we're told, because it doesn't make sense. There's a lot of work involved in that. Are there people that will do it? Probably. I mean, people do anything. I think basically what you have to do is not everybody can't go. Everybody can't get in.
Yeah.
That's life. Not everybody can get in. But I think that if your parents have that baby here, it's not the baby's fault. It's not the baby's fault. The baby didn't do anything wrong. It was just born here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the baby deserves that citizenship. Do I think the parents? No. I think they should have to. I think they should have to do the same thing that a person that is trying to get into the country would have to do.
They should definitely apply. They should apply for citizenship, take the proper channels, because the channels do exist. You never hear about them anymore. Yeah, I guess they are a little on the difficult side. People talk about the test. You have to know about certain functions of government and things. And a lot of Americans, a lot of Americans can't take the test either. But that goes back to the education
I would
again.
fail the test.
But we're already here. We were born here.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. So, I mean, is that
we've
fair?
had to endure our own hardships in our own country. Yeah. So yes, because we have to know other things besides the three branches of government. We have to have jobs. We have to provide for the family. You don't got time to study for a citizenship test. We were born here. We had to pay the taxes. We got what we already had coming. We're good. But
you sleep more than 5 hours, you probably forgot to do something.
But the issue is people are doing it to get free citizenship, and I just think that that's a very small percentage of that. Maybe like out of the the 100% that come in, I'd say maybe that's, and you guys can go pull the facts up. I say 16 to 20%, which is relatively small from other numbers.
How many percentage of what coming in?
People abusing the birthright citizenship system.
Yeah.
I will look that up real quick.
I don't know if
Because-
you'll find an accurate
makes
number right
sense.
now either. That's the other thing too. Like, because everybody's got a vested interest in some of that kind of thing politically, it might be difficult to track down an actual figure.
And I think too, like I think the immigration issue is a big problem here in the United States. And we don't do much about those folks that come over illegally. And people say, well, you're not. What? How does it work? How do they say it? You're not something on stolen land. That's a big thing that
haven't
people
heard that
like to
one.
say, but it's conquered. Every land's been conquered.
Yeah.
People conquer. It's what they do. You can't really say that anymore. I could see saying that maybe like after it happened, but now, no.
What about the Native Americans?
And the thing is this. I would love to live in Egypt one day. Not forever, just a few years.
Okay.
Just to see the pyramids. Because I would want to do the research and things like that. I'm not going to stay in Egypt and then just stay without any documentation, without any backup, without anything.
You'll
I'm
get
just
in
like,
trouble.
hey, I decided to overstay my welcome. They're going to be like, well, good, because we've decided to put you in prison for 10 years.
They
You're
take
an
their borders
American?
seriously.
You're an American too?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going for 10 years.
Like, as much as I want to go to Japan, I know they would kick me out if I tried to stay without my papers.
They wouldn't kick you out, they'd put you in prison. Or probably kick you out depending on the severity.
Oh, okay. I thought they would kick me out and send me back to American prison, but if they'll let me stay in prison in Japan...
It's not a... I don't think it's anything that is a offense of that caliber in certain countries. They just put you on a plane and send you back home.
That's
get
what
out
I was
of here.
thinking.
Might detain you in jail for a couple days, send you home. But some countries, they will 100% put you under the jail.
Oh, wow.
Because they
And
will
it's
make
gonna
an
be labor.
example of you.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're not going to
And-
just put you in jail to sit there. They're going to make you work off
prison
everything in
labor
jail
camps.
every day.
Yeah.
Like
Labor
Singapore,
camps.
Thailand, places like that. You don't want to go to prison there as a foreign-born person because they will put you to work.
Especially
China.
an American. You don't want to go to prison as an American in other countries.
Yeah.
Because
Does not
there's
sound
enough
like fun.
Americans that have done enough bad things in their countries to where they're like, no, we know your type.
Yeah.
So, like I say, come in the right way. That's it. People are like, I know Lighthouse has said this. He said, why do people want to become U.S. citizens rather than citizens of elsewhere? Because we have it semi-decent and it's safer than a lot of other countries where people come from. But that's not our job.
Power.
Our job isn't to take those people in. It's their job to do the work to make sure their country's safe to live in. We had to do it. And we instilled a government that could care less about us. But we had to go through, tribulations to get to where we're at, and we're still not there.
Yeah.
So other countries just have to do the same at this point. We can't keep putting money into saving you. At some point, you have to save yourself.
Yeah.
We will give you
help.
the ability, but we can't. You're not our citizens.
You teach a man to fish, or you give a man a fish.
I want to bring something up too.
Okay.
So recently, President Trump, and I think this is a genius move. This is a genius move. Yeah, that's true though. That's true. He designated the Mexican cartels as terrorists. Now you may be thinking, well, they're not going to send an army in there. They don't need to send an army there.
They did.
They send a couple spec ops teams, run in, that's it. If you start hearing about cartel lords dying, start reading the paper. I promise you, it has to do with that. And people are like, well, it's Call of Duty. That's not real. No, that is very real.
Like that
kind of stuff-
Iranian general that got whacked a few
Call of
in
Duty
the
is
last
based on
time that
reality.
Trump was in power. Everybody was mad about that, but it's like, no, that's how you do it. He's a clear present danger. He's
Look,
trying to destroy you. What else do you do?
And I,
Smack
for
him.
one, I for one applaud Trump for doing this.
Yeah.
Because it's the fentanyl that has hit our streets that's killing people, and listen, people have the choice to do it or not. That's not the point.
Yeah.
You're sending stuff into our country that are killing our citizens. The human trafficking across the border is atrocious. It is time that things like this happen, and I think it's great. I think it's great. Oh, I don't remember what they sounded like, so apologies.
Pew pew.
But
pew, pew.
yeah, I think it's great. You go in, then you get knocked off.
Yeah.
After a while, they're going to get the point. And that's all Trump needed to do was just do that executive order as putting them as terrorists. So now the U.S. has, okay, now we have.
People are depressed. That's why.
Because we could go into this. We could go into heroin, we can go into the poppy fields, we can go into the reason why
that'd be
Afghanistan.
That'd be a good topic for a future episode.
Why the Taliban started, because they were fighting the poppy fields so they wouldn't get it for drug trade. It's a mess.
Okay. Short answer is a very strong high, very, very quickly. That's about it. But there's a lot more to it, and we're not going to get into them here. That's just the short answer.
So I, for one, am glad to see this. I've been listening to a lot of documentaries about cartels, and they're not nice people. So I think at that point, you got to take these people out.
Actually, going off of that whole thing right there that you were just talking about, I did see something about they got into a fight at the border. Did you hear about that?
No, but they said that the cartels are going to try to use drone weaponry.
Oh.
And the people laughed. And they're like, is that the game you want to play with the United States? Like,
I would
this ain't the military. These are people who drop in the dead of night and murk people and leave, and nobody knows who they are. That's the type of situation. Yeah, this is some real life special ops stuff, SEAL type work.
The people that took out Bin Laden.
Maybe, yeah, kind of. But this could be wet work. So if you hear about an explosion somewhere happening close to a cartel, I'm not saying that's all the case. But I'm saying, start reading the news a little bit. Read news about Mexico and just see little things that are happening.
And especially different sources.
They'll upset the pipeline enough to where they got to go into hiding, and then when they got to go into hiding, it's just a matter of tracing their cell phones. You can't hide from the U.S. government. Not for long.
We got satellites.
Not now. Maybe during Vietnam you could do that, but now, good luck. You said satellites.
Yeah.
You could probably hide in the Amazon.
Heat vision.
But you're probably going to die in the Amazon if you're hiding in the Amazon. So,
like everything.
But the people who are in the Amazon don't want you to know they're in the Amazon.
Yeah.
Like the tribes and stuff, they just want to be left alone.
Mm-hmm. All right. So
anyways, yes.
So last thing for tonight. What do you guys think about Trump trying to run for a third term, but specifically blocking Obama from running again for a third term?
I think that's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous.
Propaganda, PR from both sides. There's no way that Congress is going to approve the changing of the amendment to allow that, for one thing. For anybody, whether it's him or an independent or a Democrat, it's not going to happen. And
that would be the one time that I think a protest would be called for. Yeah. Because you want to get people out in the streets. You don't want to let people get elected for third terms, because then that's a slippery slope to getting elected for life.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Russia does that. Russia has Putin's won multiple elections. Then he stopped. Remember, he stepped down from the presidency for a little while, for a number of years, to be prime minister or something like that. And then they elected him back. And he just kept getting elected, and he's been elected again and again because he controls the voting. His people control all that kind of stuff, and that's what could happen here. And our Congress is deathly afraid of the other side so much. Like Republicans, Democrats are like, nah.
How do you think Kennedy won that election? He had help from
talking about.
He had a mob boss friend in Chicago.
What Spider was talking about, I don't want to get too far into it because it is kind of conspiracy theory territory, but I'm not going to be specific about names here, but I did hear some rumors, and I personally believe this is propaganda. Like Spider said, I think it's propaganda, but I have heard some rumors that the election may have been rigged, and I'll just leave it at that.
That's every election
Every
somebody
election.
said that.
I know.
No, what
Exactly.
happened this time, and people just don't want to hear it, is that Kamala was 100% deeply unpopular.
Yeah.
She was
She
the
was
worst
really
presidential candidate
I
I
didn't
have
like her.
seen in my
people
lifetime.
were losing faith in Biden, and Biden might not have pulled it out
Yeah.
either. But once you switched it to Kamala, nobody really liked Kamala, and
I
so
mean,
instead of
yeah.
the reason Trump has the popular vote, and I don't want to make people to think I'm saying that he couldn't have won it and hurt anybody's feelings, whatever. I'm not that invested in it. I'm saying that because he won by about the same amount of votes that he got the last time when he didn't win, it's because people from the other side were like, screw it, I'm not going.
Yep.
And they didn't because they weren't going to vote for Kamala.
Personally, I think we all know how I feel about you know who, but I didn't like her either. And the person that I would have voted for was a third party, so I decided not to waste my time.
You shouldn't. You should always vote. It's your constitutional
You
right.
want, if you're going to do
Well,
third party, you want the
it-
third party to look strong enough that eventually it will be strong enough.
Well, I understand what you guys are saying, that it's our right to vote or whatever, and we have this freedom, but I think you both know I'm part of the conspiracy theory that all elections are rigged every single time, and voting is simply an illusion to pacify the masses so they don't rebel against the leadership.
That's where your thinking fails, to be quite frank, because that's not how that works. Higher up elections, I could see this, but
Electoral
like,
colleges.
no, this is the thing. There are laws and there are amendments. That's what you have to go and vote for. Your candidates, they're going to win regardless. That's not what we vote for. We vote for the things that get passed, like levies, funding for the libraries, funding for the mentally disabled folks. That's the stuff we vote for. Like, if you aren't going to vote because your candidate didn't make it, what are you doing? You have government regulations that affect you in your town right now, Stephen.
Yeah.
The things that are passed and you don't go vote against, you can't be mad when they put them in place because you had the opportunity to vote that down.
That's what they tell me, but okay. I'm going to get into this. I'm not trying to...
All right, James. I'm going to see you.
See you, James. Thanks for hanging out. I'm not trying to get too far into this, but I would like to briefly mention that, and if I'm wrong, correct me on this, but I was under the impression that back in the previous election, the last time that Trump won, I was under the election that, well, I'm in Tennessee, specifically Tennessee, voted Democrat. And then the Electoral College was like, we like the Republicans, so we're going to ignore our whole entire state and vote for this other candidate. Was I misinformed about that?
The way that works is because the Electoral College is your representatives.
Right.
So the way to stop something like that from happening is to vote in local representatives that will vote the same way as you want them to. People don't understand that. They think the president is like the end-all be-all, but it's not the way that works. You have to make sure your people in Congress are aligned with what you want. Otherwise, they're going to vote the way they want because you're putting them into place to represent you. And if you're not letting yourself be properly represented, then they won't care what you want and they'll vote the way that they want to, which is frequently along the party lines. And the only way really to make sure that you get the right leadership, if assuming both parties were actually not corrupt at some level, which is another argument, would be to make sure that your local elections are aligned with what you want from the rest of the country, because that's going to make sure, because if all the Democrats had won the House and the Senate this last time and Trump still won the presidency, you know what would happen? Trump would be able to do nothing. They would override every single thing he would do. They would pass laws that they wanted. He'd veto them, and they'd anti-veto right on down. Because they would have 2 against 1. The president is ineffectual without a strong enough Congress, which is what happened in the last administration with Biden. Was Congress was divided. You had the House was one side, Senate was the other. Same thing with Trump beforehand.
Is that why I kept getting shut down all the time?
Same thing with Trump beforehand. They were divided. Even with the virus thing, everybody's supposed to come together. The previous administration with Obama, he had 2 years when he first got in there where he had a Democrat supermajority. All the things they could have put through, they could have done if they had put forth the effort, and they didn't. So a lot of things people are mad about that Trump pushed back on or that Biden tried to salvage didn't go through because nobody cared enough about their local government to keep Congress in the supermajority because they figured they would coast.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. It's going to keep going that way unless people really take more of a focus on that and try to get their local people to actually care the way that they want.
All right. Any closing comments?
No, I think I've probably said quite a bit.
All right. Thanks for coming to hang out with us, everyone. Y'all want to say? Oh, I know. We're gonna do the outro tonight. All right, everyone. Thanks for coming to hang out. We're gonna do a 30-second outro and say bye-bye. Bye, everybody. And remember, stay uncanny.